All right.
Okay, so welcome back to the party. So we were talking about something and I really wanted to get it on our recording. Now I don't know where we were.
Oh, we were talking about, you know, land and
Yes, thank you.
yeah, land. We're talking about land.
So the best way I can put it is that in my opinion, from what I've understood and what I've been told and shown, is that we're house sitting. You know what I mean? The land's not
Oh,
ours. It's not ours. It doesn't belong to us. We there's no laying claim to land. If anything, it's reversed. It's we belong to the land. Um, and it boggles my mind that it starts wars, it starts and it makes people so angry and they just have this need to claim and gather things
mhm.
and own things and it's very interesting. It's an interesting thing to kind of think about.
When I was reading that book that I talked about in like the last episode, Tales of the Night Rainbow, that was one
Mm.
thing that the author did talk about a little bit. Not necessarily about land, but just trying to be in possession of things, period.
Yeah.
And she said that, the more, because she noticed in her grandkids were getting more interested in acquiring stuff
Hmm.
more than caring about what they had inside of them. And
Hmm.
that really bothered her because that's how they lost their culture, was because what we have is the real truest most valuable possession is what we have inside of us, the gifts we have that live inside of us that we could
Yep.
use and give and use for ourselves, use for others. And she was saying the one thing that she noticed destroys one's soul, and that's what she had been taught through her village, was that they didn't put their value in things because they knew that it destroys your soul
Yeah.
to put your value in stuff, and then you start to lose yourself
Hmm.
because now you have your value in these outside objects. So they never really glorified stuff.
I like that.
The gifts that they were given were like the gifts of their name, the
Yep.
spiritual gifts that that the seer of the village knew that they had within them. And that's why they spent most of the day not reading and writing and arithmetic. They spent most of the day honing in on those divine gifts
Yep.
and their God self, that thing,
Yep.
that ethereal body, all those different spiritual bodies where you're actually meant to do much more than just read and write and add and subtract,
Yes.
so and when she wrote about that, it deeply resonated with me because I realized, we're going and we're reading these books and we're turning these pages, but I'm not feeling a connection to that. I feel like life is something so much deeper that I can't even put into words.
Hmm.
I did feel that as a kid, and I mostly was a B student because I didn't really, I wasn't taking the cake. I
Right.
wasn't really eating the cake. I was like,
Right.
yeah, it looks good and all that. I could put icing on it and dress it the way you want me to, but I kind of shut down, just was on autopilot with that. I didn't feel like my true calling was in any of that stuff, even though I'm a writer.
Right.
But just like this lady is a writer, but what's the purpose of the writing? The purpose of the writing is to get messages from your soul across. So hence why I would relate to writing.
Right.
So same with that, with the lady who was the main character in the book. Her real name was called, Woman Keeper of the Islands, keeper of the islands. And
Hmm.
then she just happened to write this book. So the name that she was given was the correct name for her
Right.
and what she was going to go on and do. Now, she's the only true Hawaiian, indigenous person that I know of that has written this book that has now lasted a century and
Wow.
more than a
Yeah.
century, that has been able to relay who the true Hawaiians were and how things evolved over time, So,
Yeah.
and it didn't sound like she had hate in her heart. It sounded like she had a distaste for what was brought. Violence was brought. They had light and love before, and then
Hmm.
violence and murder was brought.
Hmm.
So
And all for what? For
and
land.
for land, yeah, for the land, and then the whole legend about the night marchers came about
Hmm.
because the night marchers were simply the village people that escaped before the invaders came. They escaped into the mountains. So when they noticed that the village people that didn't escape were getting murdered for not building buildings and
Right.
different what do you call those different foundations that the Tahitians wanted them to build, then the night marches would come down. They would come down. Yeah, they would come down at night and help the village people that were captives build whatever structures they needed to build so that they wouldn't be murdered. And then as soon as dawn was started to approach, they would run back into the mountains. And so and then hence that's what they got the term night marchers, because they would march back, like
at night.
Up and down the mountain in the night. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, it's deep. But they were the protectors. They truly were the real, that was how they became protectors.
Yeah.
And then now they're spirits now. And now there's all these things, because I had watched that movie Aloha just like 2 weeks ago when you were still in Hawaii. I watched the movie Aloha, where it was about these military people that were trying to take land again from the Hawaiians that exist now, and had kind of lied to them about what they were using it for. And they said, we don't want you to put any satellites or any technology in the sky. The sky is meant to be free or whatever. It's all about, nature and keeping things pure. So they said that, but then the American military lied, and they were going to do something else, and they lied, and it was a whole thing. But you saw in the movie, whatever those tribal practices were, you got to see some of that.
Yeah.
You also saw, how sacred they were keeping the land, and how the land was still sacred, even though the Hawaiians have transformed over time into a different people.
Yeah.
A lot of the traditions of keeping nature sacred was still mostly intact, so that was interesting, to watch in that movie. But it was, like you said, the basis of the battle has always been about the land. Now, it's one thing to have a village where you reside a certain place, right?
Right.
Even in the islands of the Bahamas, we have 750 keys, rocks, and coral reefs and islands, right? It's an archipelago, right? So our government is selling to anybody who wants.
Okay.
And and my relatives, yes, have had problem with that, because we're afraid that the culture isn't being preserved. Because when you let everybody, are they still carrying on the culture? Are we still passing down culture? So it's like, I get it, but that's hence tribalism and having a village. There should still be a way where people can pass on those cultural traditions in spite of land not being theirs, right? I mean,
of course.
we all live on this planet as guests to Mama Earth, right? And we inhabit her. There still needs to be a kind of way where people have a place, almost like a Bible study, right? People have a place to commune and politic or do whatever. Okay, well, like, we've noticed this has been happening, but still, people still have their free will to come and go, or to be part of the culture. It shouldn't be cult-like. But and honestly, in the book with the original Hawaiian lady, woman keeper of the islands, she shared even how what people would consider polygamy wasn't really what people consider it nowadays. It didn't necessarily involve sex, unless that's what somebody's sister-in-law, who was now a widow, because there would be situations like that. Let's say a sister-in-law becomes a widow, the brother of that husband who died would take in the sister and her family to take care of her. It didn't have anything to do with sex. So it's like, so when we talk about traditions and land and all, it's like, okay, people need to get back in tune with what the true purpose of a village and a family is. Sex is how we get here. It doesn't necessarily need to be the reason on why we exist and coexist with one another. Whatever happened to true community. And I'm waiting to see that kind of altruistic man who was like, you know what, I will take care of my sister-in-law, who is now a widow, because that's the right thing to do.
Actually, I met somebody like that on Maui. And he's married, and he owns his own business. He's a great guy. It's like a one-stop shop, man. He does everything, and he knows everybody. And I was walking with my girlfriend, the girlfriend that I was staying with, and was her boyfriend there? No, her boy. No, so it was just her, and then it was this guy, and we were just walking and talking, and he was talking about how, I don't even know how we got on the topic, but like, if he were to die, he was like, I would like my brother or someone I know to take my wife and kids in,
Hmm.
or even to marry. Like if it's one of my best friends, I would love for him to go ahead and marry my wife so I know she's taken care of instead of
Yeah.
some like random Joe Schmo. And I was like, huh.
Yeah, because see exactly because what's the purpose of even having family? We're continuing on legacy. We're also trying to nurture children. We're trying to
Right.
nurture our bloodline. We want to make sure that they're okay. We want to make
Right.
sure we're raising, healthy, and stable descendants.
Right.
So and I mean, then I did watch that movie Descendants recently too. That was also on another Hawaii movie. It was like while you were away, it's like I ended up watching Descendants. I think at the beginning too of your
Okay.
journey, I ended up watching Descendants, and then I ended up watching Aloha.
Okay.
Yeah, with Emma Stone. I think. Yeah, it was
Okay.
Emma, the one with the red hair. Is that
Emma
Emma?
Stone has red hair. Yeah.
Yeah, Emma Stone. Yeah, she's one of my favorites. The one who was in Easy A.
Yes.
Yeah, I love her. Yes, I loved her. At least up until that last movie she did, which was kind of weird. But besides that, it's like a Frankenstein movie where it was too much. But
Oh.
besides that, yeah, all the issues we're talking about with, indigenous, we can say Aboriginal because even indigenous means, I don't even like to get, but Aboriginal, natives,
Mhm.
all the politics and all the stuff that happened. It's like too many times when there are people coming in to take land or acquire land, or that the culture somehow gets broken up.
Right.
So how do we preserve our culture? And yes, we can live in harmony or whatever. Maybe like I guess in the islands we sell private islands, we sell the rocks
Okay.
and the keys. People can stay, and they own their own private islands,
Okay.
or there could be an area where like, oh yeah, all the tourists live over here or whatever, you
Okay.
know. But yeah, so that way, land could still be,
Absolutely.
it's people have the freedom to buy it. I mean, it's for sale,
Right.
and but I also think a lot of people's, like we were talking about with the polygamy, a lot of people's values have changed and then they have to really seek out what's going on with their root chakra. Like, are we
Not only
all
like every chakra.
in every chakra? I just say root chakra because a lot of people are just stuck on sex and money,
Oh,
and
absolutely. Absolutely.
and I think that's where a lot of the problems begin.
I
Is
agree.
a
I
lack of
agree.
security, and then a lack of abundance, and then a lack of abundance of feeling you're abundant, which could also relate to sex. It was like energy exchanges.
Yep.
you know so
Yep.
I just feel like the way that we are right now is very desires focused
Hmm.
rather than
And that's actually a
community.
very low level of consciousness. In the
To
map
be
of consciousness, is desire is actually quite low. Desire, apathy, guilt, shame, anger, resentment, all very low on the consciousness scale. Um, so it's interesting that you bring that up. And typically, people that and it's desiring money, people, things, it's always wanting. It's very low on the totem pole, right? When it comes to the consciousness and where you are and how awake, you know what I mean? And how everything's evolving for you. And interestingly enough, it's under, so I don't know if you're familiar with the map of consciousness by David R. Hawkins.
Explain this to me because I'm not sure. You were well read.
So,
I am
I
well
do.
incited. I've spent so much loner better time in meditation.
Well, so this guy, he actually started out as an atheist and
Wow.
died not an atheist. He is
Wow.
brilliant, like other side of the bell curve, brilliant. Um, and I believe he was a physicist. Theoretical, I don't know if it was theoretical, but he was a physicist, I believe, to begin with. Um, and he breaks it down. He created what was called the map of consciousness, and it goes from 0 to 1,000. And if it were on a grayscale, 1,000 would be bright white light, and people up there would be Jesus, Buddha, Krishna, um, and then all the way down to 0, which is just black, completely black. So it's complete lack of light and
Hmm.
love, right? And he explains how there is no duality really in life. It's not love and hate, it's just love and the lack thereof. Just
Oh,
like it's not light and dark, it's just light and the lack thereof. Because there is no darkness.
Yeah, that I would agree with that, because even so-called darkness is really for your betterment, right? It's
Yes.
everything is the lessons we get is really for you to rise and to transcend. Yeah,
Yes.
exactly.
So he has it that most people that are alive on this planet, unfortunately, well, not unfortunately, it is what it is. It's not negative, it's just neutral, are below 200.
Hmm.
And below 200 are all those things I mentioned.
Yeah.
And the key that switches you over to above 200 is courage.
Oh,
And it's the courage to change. It's the courage to do the work. It's taking that step and just going and like choosing to transcend consciousness, right?
hmm.
And evolve and level up or ascend or whatever you wanna
Girl, it
call it.
sounds like a loner's journey. That sounds like it's lonely at the top kind of thing. You're
Yeah.
gonna have
Oh,
to
it's very
leave.
lonely at the top because there's like interestingly enough, like, the higher you go in the numbers, typically speaking, there's only going to be like maybe a handful of people that are above 700 on the planet.
And you know what they say? You should definitely only be around people that are basically the same vibe as you, people that are going
Mhm.
to take you higher.
Yeah.
So as you work higher into your own self mastery, it becomes more of a loner's
Yep.
path,
Yep.
more of a yeah.
Mhm.
So it's true. It's definitely lonely at the top, but is it worth it? It's probably more than worth it to be.
I would say probably. I would say more than likely. Cream
You,
rises to the top, right? And but then again, also by evolving, like you taught me this, just and he solidified it for me because due to just quantum mechanics,
yeah.
you evolving and you raising your vibration in turn pulls everyone in your circle up.
Hmm. That you know that sounds like somebody being like a generational curse breaker and
Hmm.
them going in there and cleansing the
Hmm.
bloodline, and then it almost it could have some. It doesn't always work like this, but it could have a domino effect of
Yep.
it catching like a contagion.
Yes.
Your vibe can catch because they see you like, huh,
Yes.
that's where she transformed. I can transform
Yes.
too.
Yes. And
Yeah,
then once you're at it's almost it's like in a relationship, like once you're in this one place where you're like no longer settling for blah, 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 people around you adjust accordingly
yeah.
because they see you in this different place.
Hmm.
Go
Do you go on? Mhm.
ahead.
Do you feel, because maybe this is what you were about to say next? Do you feel that most people have that ability? I mean, I know everybody has the ability, but
Hmm.
let's be realistic. You think in most cases people are going to rise to the occasion and
No,
decide that okay.
not in most cases.
In most cases, no.
No. But
According
I
to
do
that
think there
scale.
will be a lot, right? What is it? 40,000, 80,000, or something like that?
Okay.
800,000 or something crazy. There's going to be a lot. And specifically us and being in the circle that we're in, we're going to see it. We're going to see people flipping. That's what I'm going to call it, like flipping.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? And waking up more and more just because we're in it. Um, and I think you and I have had this conversation before. And there's going to be a shift, and it's a shift within, of course. Um, and it's a shift within your microcosm,
Hmm.
right? I don't think it's going to be like necessarily a visual physical shift, but it's how things are going to occur and how you're going to be like jumping quantum
Hmm.
jumping onto a different timeline, just like the Mandela effect,
Yeah.
just like that. So you're gonna be like, well, I swore my apple tree was in the front of my yard, but now it's on the side of my like that kind of stuff. It is gonna be changes like that, but it's gonna be in your microcosm. Like I don't think it's actually gonna be like all of a sudden we're gonna walk outside and it's gonna be a bunch of giant purple people eaters. Like I don't think it's gonna be like that. You know what I'm saying? Um, but it is a Christ consciousness, and it is the second coming of Christ, which is not necessarily the physical, in my
Yeah.
opinion. The
No, I
masses and
agree.
opinions
I
of people
agree.
here,
I
right?
agree. I mean, all the allegory, especially in the New Testament, it would allude to,
Mhm.
especially the kingdom of heaven being inside you, and the 12 disciples also being possibly the zodiac signs in human form.
Mhm.
I think, I mean, when you look at it that way, it is really such a deep work where it is
Mm-hmm.
all about transcendence, and it's all about self-mastery. It is all about, you know, that Christ, reaching the Christ consciousness within and transcending yourself above all these worldly things,
Yes, ma'am.
and so we'll see. We'll definitely see. I mean, I feel like this world can be stranger than fiction, and I have seen that side. I'm not going to say necessarily to the purple people eater. I think that because it is stranger than fiction, there's a lot of stuff we don't know that has been going on for centuries that might be
Yeah.
revealed. And this is a time.
UFOs and like aliens, as we call them, or other, I like to call them interdimensional beings. I think we talked about this.
Yeah.
They are going. That's going to be a thing. Like that's going to be a thing. It's going to be a thing.
I mean, I can't wait. We're Age of Aquarius. All of it's supposed to be revealed. It's power to the
Yep.
people time. It's time for all these old systems to fail, and for new systems that are for the people to be resurrected or created. It's time for us to be liberated. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
the system is old. People are tired of working every day for money and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And we crave, I think a lot of us crave for something higher. That
Right.
Christ consciousness it's not in our desires to stop at money and stuff, really.
Right.
It's for your desires to keep on transcending. Yes, it's
Right.
great to live in abundance and to an abundance of food or an abundance of luxury, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's also to have an abundance of luxurious divine gifts,
Absolutely.
like I can do all this really cool stuff and I can help people and I could it's like,
Yeah.
it's great to be able to go beyond pulling a magic out of a magic rabbit out of a it's great to be able to carry divine gifts with you and not have to
Mm-hmm.
study them like inside a book, but just study yourself and see what your capabilities are
Mm-hmm.
as different experiences happen and how you start to learn how to discern and see those kinds of psychic gifts come online, all the clairs come online,
Yeah.
have different experience. I mean, I've even had like different experiences where somebody was yelling for me through a dream,
Mm.
but I went in their room to see if they were awake, and they were not. And they yelled for me, and I heard them yelling for me in a dream.
Wow. Yeah.
So that can tell you, like, that's what clairaudient. I've never had experienced that before.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, we are changing and we are
Yeah.
experiencing a lot of cool stuff. So,
Absolutely.
but yeah,
Are you familiar with the word abracadabra?
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So
What?
this lady,
Uh-huh.
the lady who makes these exquisite
Bracelets.
bestie bracelets, she has a pendant and it's a triangle and it says abracadabra and it says I create what I speak because that's the Aramaic translation. But someone sent me this picture. It's a meme and I have to read it to you because I know your background and my background with the church. And it says, I don't know if you can see it, but it's illustrated stories of the Bible.
Yeah, I
Okay.
see it. Mm-hmm.
And it says the Bible is the literal word of God, except when it's grotesque, then it's an allegory. And except when it's graphic, then it's a metaphor. Oh, and except when it's obscene, then it's actually symbolic. And except when it's archaic, then it's analogous. Oh, and of course, when it's hateful, then it's really just about interpretation. But other than that, the Bible's the literal word of God.
Wow, I love it.
I got it, and it was just like, oh, ouch.
And that's why recently I had to like slow down with certain contacts, because I realized, when we talk about absolutes, like we talked about in the last episode, somebody else's absolutes, because people can manifest for you.
Absolutely.
Whether we want to believe that or not. And I know that's controversial, and I don't want to say that that's true, but it's true.
It is.
People can manifest for you, and then the closer they are to you, and the more you believe them and love them, the more they have the ability to bless or curse you.
Yeah.
And some can say blessing could be the same as a curse, yeah. Especially in the Bible, and what the words mean. And we talk about abracadabra, but the word bless can also be curse.
Mm-hmm.
So depending on what somebody views as a blessing could also be somebody's curse.
Absolutely.
And when we talk about praying for people, it could also be considered preying.
Yeah.
So I had to take like steps back from certain religious people who were just too absolute. And
Mm-hmm.
I love them, but I realized there were times where they were actually cursing me. And some of the times when I had been the most isolated, and I hate to even say this, the times when I've been the most isolated, my life was the most stable. And I can't, I mean, I didn't like finding that truth out.
Yep.
But if that was the truth for me, and like you were saying with that scale, it makes sense because other people can drag you down if they're still
Yep.
living in a box. And
Yep.
if I'm trying to free myself and I'm trying to go higher and higher and higher, and I'm meant to do that, I'm even meant to do that in my zodiac, I'm meant to do that in my life path sign. And I know you are too, because you're a 9.
Right.
We're meant to keep transcending higher and higher. You're meant to graduate this life. I'm meant to graduate and not decide to return. Because this is my return.
I can dig it.
Okay, I'm
I'm
like, no,
hoping
I'm
this is
not
my
coming back.
last rodeo.
This is my absolute last. Ain't nobody and no contract with nobody. It's like, please, no,
And you know
no,
what's
no.
funny is we probably say that every lifetime.
Every lifetime.
We
Yeah.
probably are like, you know what? I'm tired. I don't want to do this again. This was terrible. I don't want to do this again. But this is, and I don't see it as terrible. I see it, I try to see it now as neutral,
Yeah.
right? Just
Yeah.
things as they
Because
are
we
as in
don't know.
between.
You don't
Yeah,
really know why you don't know what deal you made with the Most High to come back here. I don't know
exactly.
what I needed to come back here for, but
Yeah.
clearly it was so necessary that in spite of me hating hating it here like a typical Pisces. We're like, God, this could go. Like whatever this is, this could kick rocks. Like I talk to other Pisces that are like, fuck this. Like we're just hanging on by threads.
Girl, and same thing with the other Pisces that I know.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Exactly. Yes. We got the same. Okay, it is the same thing. We're like, man, she's over there hanging on by threads. I get it. I totally get it. All of our situations can be different, but the
Yep.
same.
Yep.
Um,
But
and it's
also, sorry to interrupt, but also
yeah,
I did hear something the other day and it made me go, oh, and it was like, yeah, it was like talking about this life and she said, maybe this life was me begging God to come back just to see the mountains one more time and to feel the
oh,
ocean breeze one more time and to feel what love feels like with people and experience it and experience
yeah,
all the amazing things that this life has just one more time. And it was my like my beg and my plead to come back.
yeah.
And I was like, wow.
It's deep because I heard something similar. Like we all used to be stars, but then we begged like that Most High energy, please just make me human so I can see what it's like to
Yeah.
feel things and experience all these tangible things. And we begged and finally got it. And now here we are. We're
And
like,
now we
now
are
we
saying we want to
felt.
get off.
Yeah. Now we're saying like, what? Why did I ask for this? I was a star in the sky, and all I had to do was shine all day and night. Mostly in the night. I'm still up there in the day. Nobody can see me, but I mean, I'm shining the whole day. It's like, and all I got to do is go in all these different rainbow colors, the Merkaba.
Yeah.
I'm blinking in all these colors. It's just the chakras. Like, I mean, basically, I'm just a chakra body. Why
Right.
would I want to be a real body? You
Right.
know, and it looks like those chakras are always aligned. The way that it's flashing in the sky. I
Yeah.
use my binoculars and see it flashing all the time, and I'm like, wow, that's so pretty. And
Yeah.
look at them. They're all always aligned,
And
those stars.
did you know that once you're actually looking at a star, it's already dead?
No.
Mhm. Because of the time it takes to get to our eyes of the light
Oh,
years.
wow.
I
That's
think the
incredible.
closest one is like 950 million years away.
Wow.
And that's the closest star. I was talking to somebody when I was on Maui, and I was like, huh, because we were looking up at the stars. And I was like, because I had heard, they're like, oh, yeah, da 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 da. By the time you look at it, it's already fizzled out.
Wow.
And she was like, what? I was like, yeah. So I started Googling because you got to ask the Googler.
Yeah.
And then it was like, yeah, she's like, I wonder what the closest star is. And I looked it up, and I think, I don't know, maybe don't quote me, but I think it was like 953 million years. And
Wow.
that's crazy. That's
That is wild.
crazy.
That's crazy. I mean, especially when you put it like that, it's like, wow. Should I even bother looking with my binoculars, knowing it's dead already?
It's still cool.
Yeah. I
And
mean,
it's really
definitely.
cool to know that it's even that. You know what I mean?
Wow. I mean, that's mind boggling. I wanted to ask you, speaking of which,
Yeah.
because you mentioned Maui again, did you feel, especially as a medium, Did you
Mm,
feel, because Hawaii can be a very spiritual place. There's even grounds you're not even supposed to walk on, I heard.
okay.
That could be very sacred, and you're
There
not
are
yet.
some sacred places. Sorry, I had to look up Google because
Hmm.
I had to ask. I said closest star. Proxima Centauri is a red dwarf star that's second closest star to Earth. It's 4.25 light years away, but it doesn't say how many years that is, though.
Wow. It sounds like
Um,
a far way away.
so anywho,
Hmm.
um, there are some places actually that I did visit, but all, and we were in Eau Valley and we went and I got some tea leaves to make some leis.
Hmm.
So I made a tea leaf lei. I made actually two. She made one. And we went to go pull the leaves. And all I did was I said my prayers and I actually gave an offering of a guava. So I wrapped it in a tea leaf and I left it as an offering. Um, and it's a park, right? It's an area where people go, but you don't take from the earth, right? You don't
Yeah.
just go and just start ripping stuff up.
Yep.
And there were some places. There was a cave that I went to on Oahu that had an offering laid out because that is seen to be sacred land. So
Hmm.
they constantly have offerings that they're putting out. Um, and yeah, like, little kids go in there like, and they want to like, and I'm like, get your kid, bro.
Yeah, and this is what I usually yell at my kid for. I'm like, just because you see something pretty doesn't mean you need to pick it because now it's dead. So you can just admire it and walk by it so that it's still alive the next time you see. It's like, no, I have to say the same thing. And I have had to yell at other kids abusing trees all throughout my adult life. I'm like, get off that tree. Stop doing that. Stop breaking its branches and stepping on bees just because you feel like it. I mean, too many people in the world do shit just because they feel like it, man. And then they don't
Yeah.
realize.
And you
Mm.
can't just, yeah. And that's funny. You're like the equivalent of the old guy. Get off my lawn.
Well, it was a tree. It was a tree that was in the vicinity of the multiplex apartment that I lived in.
I
It was
can
like, I'm
dig it.
protecting this tree.
I
Kid, get up.
understand.
You know what it was? It was this really rambunctious kid that it wasn't even just the tree. Like he would come over, he would see a bee land. The bee wasn't bothering anybody, and he'd go and he would be the person to stomp on it and just go and kill it just
Yeah, as
because.
soon as you said a rambunctious kid, I already saw the kid. I already know exactly what kid you're
Yeah.
talking about.
But his mom was right there because there was this beautiful, I don't know if it was a hedgehog or beaver. It
What?
was a groundhog.
Beavers,
I
beavers.
told you the story from years ago. It was that
The
beautiful
groundhog?
groundhog. It was a groundhog, and it came up to me one day, and I damn near screamed because I'm like, I didn't expect for the thing to come up to me. It was almost like it was trying to ask me something. And I'm thinking to myself, why are you here? This isn't safe. Like it's not safe for you. They have a cage over here waiting for you. And it
Wow.
saw the cage. And you know what? I made sure when nobody was looking, especially when it was caught in that cage, I made sure I opened that lid up and let that thing go. I was like, y'all doing too much. We out in the middle of West Virginia. It's like we live on their land. We live right next to
That's
horses, like
cool.
horse stable. Yeah, we lived in between two mountains too. So it was like, what was that? I mean, what was that groundhog doing to anybody? Nothing. I go away for a weekend. I come back. I hear that they murdered the thing, and they was making a groundhog soup out of it. And I mean, they could have made mittens out of it too, for all I know.
Well, remember, but to be fair, some of them they're giant pests and they can cause foundational issues.
See, so there is also that.
Yeah.
So the next door neighbor, who was also some kind of a registered abuser,
Yeah, I remember
he was
this.
he was the one putting out the traps and saying, "Well,
Oh,
I'm
we got a
just gonna."
minute. We got a minute left. Okay, go
Oh
ahead.
no, he said, "I'm just gonna catch this and just drive it up the street and let it out somewhere." And I was like, "Oh, I don't believe that for 2 seconds. I might as well have that cage and do it myself," is what I was thinking. So
You could.
anyway, it was a whole thing. Like you said, yes, it could cause foundational issues, but certainly there's got to be a way, or have somebody trustworthy
Yeah, you can call
take
in
care of that.
people. They can take them and
Take them and go. Yeah, but they shot that. He was gone. So the mom of the rambunctious kid took a shotgun and shot him on the 4th of July weekend. So
Okay.
he didn't even have a chance, he didn't have a chance. And then the grandma said that she would cook a groundhog soup. The grandma of the lady who shot who cooks a groundhog. So she had a bone in the fight. Okay.
Oh, okay.
She had a horse in the race. Okay. So it wasn't just foundational. It was it was
Want some soup?
she was wanted some new mittens.
Amazing. This is an amazing finish. I love it.
But it's about land, right? That was
It's
West
about
Virginia.
land and
That
food.
was West
Mittens.
Virginia land.